Picture this. It's 490 BC, the mightiest empire the world has ever seen. The Persian Empire stretches from India to the Aegean Sea. Its ruler, King Darius the Great, has set his sights on a small, rebellious collection of city-states, Greece. And at the heart of his ambition is one city in particular, Athens. This isn't just a story about a battle. It's the story of how a handful of determined citizens saved the course of Western civilization. This is the story of the Battle of Marathon. A few years earlier, several Greek cities in Ionia, which is modern-day Turkey, revolted against Persian rule. And who came to their aid? Athens. They sent ships and soldiers, a move that King Darius saw as a personal insult. The Ionian revolt was eventually crushed, but Darius never forgot Athens' defiance. He vowed revenge. His first attempt to invade Greece was a disaster. A massive storm wiped out his fleet off the coast of Mount Athos. But a king like Darius doesn't give up easily. He began planning a second, even larger invasion, this time aimed directly at the heart of the problem, Athens. His plan was cunning. Instead of a long, arduous land journey, he would send a massive naval fleet directly across the Aegean Sea. The fleet was enormous, carrying tens of thousands of infantry and cavalry. Their destination was a wide, flat bay, perfect for a large-scale landing and ideal for their powerful cavalry. That bay was called Marathon. The Persians weren't just coming to fight, they were coming to conquer. They even brought a huge block of marble with them, intending to carve a victory monument right there on Athenian soil after they'd crushed the city. Talk about confidence, right? When news of the Persian landing at Marathon reached Athens, panic set in. Imagine hearing that an unstoppable army, maybe 25, 30, or even 40,000 strong, landed just 26 miles from your home. The Athenians could only muster about 10,000 soldiers, known as hoplites. They were citizens, soldiers, farmers, potters, and philosophers, not professional warriors like many in the Persian ranks. They were hopelessly outnumbered. In this desperate moment, Athens did two things. First, they sent out their fastest runner, a man named Phidippides. His mission was legendary: run 150 miles to Sparta, Athens' powerful but often reluctant rival, and beg for help. Phidippides made the grueling journey in just 2 days, an incredible athletic feat. But the Spartans, while agreeing in principle, had a problem. They were in the middle of a religious festival, the Carnia, and their laws forbade them from marching to war until the next full moon. They promised to come, but they would be several days late. Athens was on its own. The second thing Athens did was debate. Inside the city, the leaders were split. Some argued for hunkering down behind the city walls, hoping to withstand a siege. Others, led by a brilliant and bold general named Miltiades, argued for a different approach. Miltiades knew the Persians well. He had even served with them in the past. He understood their tactics, their strengths, and their weaknesses. He argued passionately that staying in the city was a trap. The Persian cavalry would ravage the countryside, and their fleet could simply sail around and attack the city from its port. The only chance, he insisted, was to march out and confront the Persians head-on at Marathon. It was a terrifying gamble. The 10 Athenian generals who commanded the army were split 5-5. The deciding vote fell to the polemarch or war ruler, Callimachus. Miltiades made a powerful speech, convincing Callimachus that the fate of Athens and the very idea of freedom hung in the balance. The gamble was approved. The Athenian army, about 9,000 strong, marched out to meet the invaders. Along the way, they were joined by 1,000 soldiers from the small city of Plataea, the only Greek ally to answer the call. 10,000 brave men against a force at least twice their size. When the Athenians arrived at Marathon, they saw the vast Persian army camped on the plain below. For several days, it was a tense standoff. The Athenians held the high ground at the edge of the valley, their flanks protected by hills and marshes. This position neutralized the greatest Persian threat, their cavalry. Now, the flat plain was perfect for cavalry charges. But the Persians couldn't risk sending their horses into the rough terrain where the Greeks were positioned. Miltiades knew he couldn't wait forever.
No, dude.
The Spartan reinforcements were still days away, and there was a constant threat that pro-Persian factions back in Athens might try to open the city gates to the enemy. He needed to act. The Persian command structure was a bit of a mystery. But one morning the Athenians noticed something. The Persian cavalry was gone. Where did they go? The most likely theory is that the Persian commanders, frustrated by the stalemate, decided to split their forces. They likely loaded their cavalry and a portion of their infantry back onto the ships to sail around the peninsula and attack the undefended city of Athens directly. This was the moment Miltiades had been waiting for. With the feared Persian cavalry out of the picture, the odds had shifted just slightly. It was now an infantry battle. He devised a brilliant, unorthodox plan. The standard Greek formation, the phalanx, was a dense wall of shields and spears, usually of uniform depth. Miltiades decided to modify it. He knew the Persian strength was in their center, which was packed with their best troops. So he intentionally thinned out the center of his own line, making it only a few ranks deep. He then took those extra soldiers and massively reinforced his flanks, making them incredibly deep and powerful. His plan was a high-stakes version of a double envelopment. He was betting that his weakened center could hold on just long enough for his super-strong flanks to crush the weaker Persian wings. Then, his victorious flanks could swing inward and attack the elite Persian center from the sides and rear, trapping them in a pincer movement. It was a risky, audacious strategy. If his center broke too quickly, the entire army would be destroyed. At dawn, Miltiades gave the order. The Athenian hoplites began to advance. But instead of the usual slow, deliberate walk of the phalanx, they did something shocking. Once they were within bow range of the Persian archers, about 200 yards away, they broke into a run. This had two effects. First, it minimized the time they were exposed to the deadly volleys of Persian arrows. Second, the sight of 10,000 men in bronze armor charging at full speed must have been absolutely terrifying. The two armies crashed together with incredible force. As Miltiades had predicted, the battle unfolded in two distinct phases. In the center, the thin Athenian line buckled under the pressure of the elite Persian troops. The Greeks were pushed back, fighting desperately. It looked like the line was about to break, but on the flanks, it was a completely different story. The heavily reinforced Greek wings smashed through the weaker Persian wings. The Persians, used to fighting more lightly armored opponents, were no match for the wall of bronze shields and long spears of the hoplites. The Persian flanks broke and fled in panic towards their ships. This was the critical moment. Instead of chasing the fleeing soldiers, the victorious Athenian wings executed their commander's brilliant plan perfectly. They halted, turned inward, and slammed into the sides of the Persian center, which was still pushing back the Greek center. The trap had sprung. The elite Persian troops suddenly found themselves attacked from three sides. Their advance turned into a confused, desperate struggle for survival. Surrounded and overwhelmed, their discipline collapsed. The fighting turned into a slaughter. The Persians broke and ran, a panicked mob streaming back towards the beach and the safety of their ships. The Athenians pursued them relentlessly, cutting them down as they tried to flee. The battle raged all the way to the shoreline, with Greeks fighting Persians in the shallows of the bay, trying to capture and burn their ships. They managed to capture 7 ships, but the bulk of the Persian fleet managed to push off and escape. The Battle of Marathon was over. The Athenians had won an impossible victory. The battlefield was littered with the bodies of their enemies. The historian Herodotus tells us that 6,400 Persians lay dead on the field. The Athenians? They lost only 192 men. Each one was a hero, and they were later buried in a special mound on the battlefield that still stands today. But the danger wasn't over. The Persian fleet that escaped remembered them. They were still sailing towards Athens, likely with the cavalry on board, hoping to find the city undefended. The victorious, but utterly exhausted Athenian soldiers had no time to celebrate. They had to get back to Athens immediately. In another incredible feat of endurance, the army gathered its strength and marched the 26 miles back home at top speed. They arrived just as the Persian fleet was appearing on the horizon. When the Persian commanders saw the same soldiers that had just decimated their army, now lining the hills above Athens, they knew the game was up. Their surprise attack had failed. With no other option, they turned their ships around and sailed back to Asia in defeat. The victory at Marathon was more than just a military triumph. It was a victory for an idea. The idea that free citizens fighting for their homes, their families, and their way of life could defeat the subjects of a distant king. It filled Athens with an incredible sense of confidence and self-belief that would fuel its golden age, a period of unprecedented achievement in philosophy, drama, art, and of course, democracy. The Battle of Marathon proved that the Persian Empire was not invincible. It set the stage for the later, larger Persian Wars and arguably secured the future of Western civilization as we know it. And what about Phidippides, the runner? The famous legend we all know of him running from Marathon to Athens, shouting Nike, which means victory, and then collapsing dead, is actually a later embellishment. A conflation of his run to Sparta and the army's march back from Marathon. But it captures the spirit of the event perfectly. It's a story of incredible endurance and ultimate sacrifice for a greater cause. A story that reminds us that sometimes, against all odds, the few can stand against the many and change the world. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey back in time, be sure to like and subscribe for more epic stories from history.